Let me tell you the incredible and sad story of John Denver, one of America's most beloved singers, whose life ended in a mysterious plane crash that nobody could explain for years until now. John Denver wasn't even his real name. He was actually born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. on December 31, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico, which is the same place people say aliens crashed their spaceship. His dad was a pilot in the Air Force, which meant the family had to move around all the time from one military base to another, never staying in one place long enough for John to make real friends or feel like he had a real home. All this moving around made young John feel kind of lost and lonely, but it also helped him fall in love with the beautiful landscapes of America as he saw mountains, deserts, forests, and plains during all their travels. When John was just 11 years old, his grandmother gave him his first guitar, and that simple gift changed his entire life forever. He started learning to play by listening to Elvis Presley records and folk singers from the 1960s, spending hours and hours practicing until his fingers were sore. And slowly he began to develop his own special style of music. When he grew up and went to college at Texas Tech University, he kept playing music and dreaming of becoming a famous singer. And eventually he made the big decision to move to Los Angeles to try to make it in the music business. That's when he changed his name from Henry Deutschendorf to John Denver, picking the name Denver because he absolutely loved Colorado and its beautiful capital city, even though he had never actually lived there yet. John's big break came in 1969 when he wrote a song called "Leaving on a Jet Plane," which became a huge hit when a famous group called Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded it. And suddenly, everyone in the music business knew that John Denver could write amazing songs that touched people's hearts. After that success, John started performing his own songs instead of just writing them for other people. And during the 1970s, he became one of the biggest stars in the world with songs like "Take Me Home," "Country Roads," Annie's song, "Rocky," "Mountain High," "Sunshine on My Shoulders," and "Thank God I'm a Country Boy." These weren't just regular pop songs. They were special because they celebrated the beauty of nature and made people feel happy and peaceful. And John's warm, friendly voice made everyone feel like he was singing just for them. John wasn't just a musician, though. He also tried acting and appeared in movies and TV shows, with his most famous movie role being in "Oh God" in 1977, where he starred alongside the funny comedian George Burns, and the movie was a big hit because John's natural warmth and kindness on screen perfectly balanced George's comedy. But what really made John special was that he cared deeply about protecting the environment and making the world a better place. So he used his fame to speak out about saving forests, protecting animals, and fighting pollution. And he even started his own foundation called WinStar to teach people about taking care of the Earth. John was also fascinated by space exploration and thought it was important for humans to explore other planets, so he supported NASA and tried to convince people that space travel was worth spending money on. He even stood up to the government when they tried to censor music, testifying before Congress to defend the right of musicians to sing about whatever they wanted without being banned from the radio. The place that meant the most to John was Colorado, especially the town of Aspen, where he bought a house and lived for most of his adult life, surrounded by the Rocky Mountains that inspired so many of his songs. He loved Colorado so much that in 1974, the state made him their official poet laureate, which is like being the official songwriter for the whole state. And later, they even made "Rocky Mountain High" one of Colorado's official state songs because it captured the spirit of the mountains so perfectly. West Virginia also adopted "Take Me Home," "Country Roads" as one of their state songs because even though John wasn't from there, the song made everyone feel homesick for a beautiful place they loved. In 1967, John married a woman named Annie Martell from Minnesota, and she became not just his wife, but also his inspiration for some of his most beautiful songs. The most famous song he wrote about Annie was called "Annie's Song." And here's the amazing part. He wrote the entire song in just 10 minutes while sitting on a ski lift in Colorado, because he was so overwhelmed with love for her and the beautiful mountains around them that the words just poured out of him. John and Annie lived together in Minnesota for a while, but after John wrote "Rocky Mountain High," following a camping trip they took with friends, he fell so deeply in love with the mountains that they moved to Aspen, Colorado, where John felt most at home. John and Annie couldn't have children naturally, and John absolutely loved being a father more than anything else in his life. He once said that the best thing about him wasn't his music or his fame, and that when he died, he wanted to be remembered most of all as Zachary and Anna Kate's father. John even wrote a Christmas song for Zachary called "A Baby Just Like You" that included the sweet line, "Merry Christmas, Little Zachary," showing how much his children meant to him. Sadly, even though John and Annie loved each other very much, his huge success and busy career put too much pressure on their marriage, and they got divorced in 1982 after 15 years together. John later admitted that he had been so focused on his music career that he neglected his relationship with Annie, and she said they were both too young and immature to handle the sudden fame and all the changes it brought to their lives. When they divided up their belongings in the divorce, John did something really dramatic and weird. He actually cut their bed in half with a chainsaw to show how their marriage was split apart, which gives you an idea of how emotional and impulsive John could be when he was upset. A few years later, in 1988, John married an Australian actress named Cassandra Delaney after dating her for 2 years, and they had a daughter together named Jessie Bell, but this marriage was much more troubled than his first one. John and Cassandra separated in 1991 and got divorced in 1993. And John was pretty bitter about it once, saying that Cassandra had made a fool of him all over Aspen, which showed that this divorce was much more painful and embarrassing for him than his split with Annie. During the 1990s, John kept making music, but he wasn't as popular as he had been in the 1970s, and he was dealing with personal problems, including depression and stress from his failed marriages. Though he tried to keep these struggles private and maintain his image as the happy, nature-loving singer his fans expected him to be. John had always loved flying airplanes. It probably came from growing up with a father who was an Air Force pilot, and he owned several small planes that he flew himself as a hobby. On October 12, 1997, John decided to take his airplane, called a Rutan Long EZ, for a flight along the California coast, killing John instantly at the age of 53. For years, nobody could figure out exactly what happened. Some people thought it was pilot error, others thought the plane had mechanical problems, and there were all kinds of theories and rumors about what really caused the crash. But now, after decades of investigation, experts have finally solved the mystery of what killed John Denver. And the truth is more disturbing than anyone expected. It turns out that John's plane had serious design problems that made it dangerous to fly, especially with the fuel system, and the fuel selector valve was in the wrong position during the flight, which meant the engine couldn't get fuel and just stopped working while John was flying over the ocean. Even more upsetting is that John had complained about problems with the fuel system before the flight, but he didn't get proper help or repairs from the people who made the plane. And if they had fixed these problems or given him better training, the crash might never have happened. The investigation also revealed that John was going through a really difficult time in his personal life, dealing with depression and stress from his divorces and other problems, which might have affected his ability to handle the emergency when the plane started having trouble. Some people have wondered if John was using drugs or alcohol when he crashed, but there's no evidence of that. Instead, it seems like it was a perfect storm of a badly designed airplane, poor maintenance, inadequate training, and a pilot who was emotionally struggling and couldn't cope when everything went wrong at once. The saddest part of this whole story is that John Denver's death probably could have been prevented if the aviation industry had better safety rules for experimental planes, if manufacturers had been more honest about the risks, and if pilots like John had received better training on how to handle emergencies. John's death has led to changes in how small planes are regulated and how pilots are trained, so that hopefully other people won't die the same way he did. For his millions of fans around the world, learning the truth about John Denver's death is really hard because it shows that even someone who seemed so happy and positive in his music was actually struggling with serious problems in his real life, and that fame and talent couldn't protect him from making the same kinds of mistakes that could happen to anyone. John Denver's story is both inspiring and tragic. Inspiring because he used his music to celebrate the beauty of nature and encourage people to take care of the earth. But tragic because his life ended so suddenly and unnecessarily when he was only 53 years old and still had so much more music to share with the world.